So on this channel, we've covered a lot about like woke capitalism, identity politics and capitalism, and also just how massive corporations are now dropping a lot of that stuff in favor of maybe being more neutral or even going in a more conservative direction because of what they perceive to be the culture at the moment in the West, especially in the United States. But today, what I wanted to talk about was going against the saying, go woke, go broke, and talking more about going anti woke and going broke. And I have a couple of examples today of companies, whether they be beer companies, car companies, or video game companies, trying to actually appeal to conservatives by marketing in a conservative way, and that backfiring massively on either their sales or even their entire product basically being shelved, which has happened in the case of video games, and just talk about like why that is and what types of companies suffer from going anti-woke. And we're going to talk about Tesla, Brewdog, Splitgate, and the common factor with a lot of these companies that try and either pivot to a conservative audience or have the face of the company that is known to be like a conservative and a pretty terrible person, how that affects the sales and affects people's general distaste for these companies. And this also often happens in maybe industries that have quite a vocal, more right leaning consumer base, but they still don't like this as well. So I want to talk about that because I really do believe that although people always vote a certain way, there is something distasteful to a lot of consumers about being like very outwardly political in a controversial way when you're just trying to sell someone a product for your profit, because at the very least they see it as insincere. But a lot of people just see it as annoying and they don't want to think about politics when they're just buying consumer products. I mean, I know for a lot of people on this channel, you probably always do that when you think about your consumer choices, but a lot of people do not want to think about that. So even people coming out and being like very conservative, while they might even agree with that like political stance, they still don't like it when it comes to their like consumer choices and consumer products. And I didn't want to make a video about Sydney Sweeney, but I'm going to talk about that first. It even appears that Gene ad might have backfired, even though it got the company way more attention. It got like Donald Trump talking about it, all these Republicans like rallying around the company. It still appears that the controversy might not have even been worth it because like people just don't like that at the time of MAGA, because despite conservatives dominating the culture from positions of power, that doesn't mean people like conservatives or like conservatism or they like cultural conservatism. And even at the best of times, when people like Trump are very popular, they're still really polarizing and they're really hated. But obviously right now it feels more than ever that these people are really hated by the general masses. So it seems like an even worse time to double down on this stuff. So I want to talk about all of this today, but before we go any further, please follow me on social media at the Kavernacle, on Blue Sky and on Instagram. If you want to support the channel, please check out my Patreon page or support me on YouTube memberships. And if you like this video and you like my content at the end, maybe consider giving this video a like and maybe subscribe to the channel for more content. So let's get into this with the most recent example before we go into some of the ones I briefly mentioned. It was in the discourse for weeks and I didn't talk about it, but obviously Sydney Sweeney has seemingly decided to be the face of multiple weird business endeavors, and it happened to be for a jean company this time. You know, posted this on Truth Social. Sydney Sweeney, a registered Republican, has the hottest ad out there. It's for American Eagle, and the jeans are flying off the shelves. Go get 'em, Sydney. On the other side of the ledger, Jaguar did a stupid, seriously woke advertisement that is a total disaster, and the CEO just resigned in disgrace. So Republicans really rallied around this, but a story out this week said, from Retail Brew, exclusive, foot traffic down 9% at American Eagle following Sydney Sweeney ad controversy. So just saying it fell 9% for the week that began August 3rd, marking the second week of traffic declines since the retailer launched its controversial campaign featuring Sydney Sweeney. So this is just like a little bit of data. It could actually mean nothing in the grand scheme of things, but I just thought it was an interesting, like maybe precursor of what might come from this ad, that yes, you have became part of the culture. Everyone is talking about this ad, whether it's promoting eugenics or whether it's not. A lot of people obviously see that Sydney Sweeney is a Republican. But at the time where, you know, Republicans are just going full mask off Nazi about nearly everything, talking about eugenics and talking about genes in an advert for clothing doesn't seem that tasteful. So while it might have got more fame and popularity from this, how loyal will Republicans be to a gene company? Most people even know controversial facts about companies that sell them jeans. I don't think they generally do. So this might actually massively backfire in the long run. And I want to talk about another company in a sort of similar position that has started pivoting to conservative marketing as like a Hail Mary to save the business. But let's talk about companies that have a singular face of the company, the CEO, who is conservative leaning and is well known in the public culture and is well known for being conservative. So I don't need to talk about this too much because I made a whole video on this, but Elon Musk giving a Nazi salute in January had massive repercussions on Tesla's business in Europe primarily. While a lot of Americans might have been swayed to support Tesla and electric vehicles from Tesla that have primarily been seen as like woke or whatever, the American business hasn't suffered as much because in a country like America, we even talked about the Tesla diner, loads of people still love Elon Musk, but when you're going full mask off fash, you're backing the AfD in Germany, you're backing Meloni in Italy, you're giving this salute. To Europeans, it means something like way, way different in terms of the historical context, right? So my grandma died this year. She was 15 years old when World War II ended, and I knew people who were World War II veterans growing up, like my friends' grandparents were World War II veterans and stuff. World War II veterans were around a lot when I was younger, right? So if you are like in your 50s or even older, you would have grown up in a world where loads of people, either civilians or soldiers, would have suffered at the hands of people who do salutes like this, right? And there's a reason that people saw someone like Elon Musk do it, and then Tesla immediately tanked across Europe, particularly in Germany, France, Spain, and England. And although Tesla's official marketing had nothing to do with like conservatism or white supremacy or anything like that, Tesla is Elon Musk. It's one of those companies where the whole brand is the one guy. You cannot separate the two from each other. And for a long time, people who invested in Tesla and the board at Tesla, they love this shit. They love Elon Musk being very popular in the culture. He had a great reputation. I talked about this in a whole video. How he's had such a massive cultural downfall in the last 8 years, where he's one of the most like hated men in America. And he's hated because of his explicit conservative politics, but also his role in the Trump administration, which has like destroyed the Tesla brand. So in terms of Tesla specifically, not his other businesses, which he has used his position in the US government before he was, you know, basically removed by Trump. He wormed companies like SpaceX more into the US government. With Twitter and with Tesla, what he's done and his more explicit political evolution to an open white supremacist has like tanked the brands of both of them. Because you don't have to be some sort of super woke leftist like myself to really hate Elon Musk politics and just really cringe and be put off the product because you know it's associated with him. Like so many people now, even if they like the product, and I read out some stories of this happening in Europe, they were selling their Teslas because they were so embarrassed to be associated with Elon Musk. And that's what you're creating when you have one man who is the face of a company. When he goes anti-woke, in this case full fash, it's going to affect the business. And even in late June, you had this report, Tesla's European sales slump as Musk warns of rough quarters ahead. Tesla sales in Europe have collapsed by 1/3 this year after Elon Musk warned the electric car maker faced a few rough quarters ahead, according to figures published Thursday by the European Automobile Manufacturers Association. Sales of Tesla vehicles in Europe slumped by 33% to 110,000 in the first half of 2025, compared with 165,000 in the first half of 2024. The data suggests Tesla is still trying to emerge from a sales rut in Europe, even after releasing new models. Tesla faces specific challenges. Musk, who shares in the company have made him the world's richest man, has contributed to the decline by backing Europe's far-right political parties. Sales across Europe were down for the car maker by more than a fifth year-on-year in June to 35,000. So like I said, Tesla's branding, its corporate branding, has been more centrist, even at times progressive, when Elon Musk was talking about how he would help save the environment through this company, electric vehicles and all the rest of it. But you just cannot get away from the conservative politics of the man who is so linked to the company. But he was so instrumental in raising Tesla's profile. The same thing is happening when he's going anti-woke. And will Elon Musk go broke? No. But Tesla is on a downward slide, which doesn't seem like it's going to be reversed anytime soon, especially with Chinese electric vehicles being made for cheaper, and many reviews I've been watching recently saying they're actually a lot better than Western manufacturers as well. So if that continues to be the trend, Tesla continues to be associated with Musk, while Chinese cars might get a better reputation, you can see the company continue on a downward trajectory, especially in Europe. But let's talk about similar examples, because this seems to be the phenomenon with going anti-woke and going broke. There's a company called Brewdog in the UK which owns pubs but also makes like beers and stuff, right? I'm not a big drinker. I don't think I've even ever had a Brewdog drink. But I actually know it primarily because of the guy who was the co-founder and was the CEO, James Watt. Now, let's have a look at his social media page quick. So, Brewdog's James Watt. I'll fix broken Britain like Elon Musk. He started his own thing called Shadow Doge. So, if you want to know what an insufferable twat this guy is, I mean, that just says it all. He's also going out with like a pretty prominent like conservative influencer, obviously like a massive AI bro, and he actually had to step down as CEO of Brewdog because of his toxic reputation and just how poorly it was run in terms of workers' rights and just the business on being on a downward trajectory. And like I was saying, for a lot of people, when you say Brewdog, they obviously think of, the pubs, or they think of the drinks. But I think to most people generally who aren't that interested in that, they're just like, oh, yeah, isn't the CEO a knob? On a very, very micro scale, it's just like Elon Musk and Tesla. Because I remember someone told me they worked for Brewdog. That's the first thing I said to them. And it's what we talked about, right? I feel like that is what everyone says when you talk about Brewdog. You cannot divorce the two. So you can't get away from it. No matter if you change his title, you change his role, you get a new CEO in to run the company like Elon Musk tried to do on Twitter, it doesn't fucking matter. The stink is always going to be there. If such a toxic individual, conservative individual at that, is involved in the company for so long, it's not going to go away overnight, if ever. So the BBC reporting last year in May, the boss of Scottish beer giant Brewdog is to step down as CEO. James Watt said he would move to a newly created position of captain and co-founder and retain his shares in the company, and his role will be taken over by Chief Operating Officer James Arrow. So Mr. Watt's tenure has been marked by controversy in recent years. The firm was accused by workers in an open letter in 2021 of having created a culture of fear within the business with toxic attitudes to junior staff. In 2022, several ex-Brewdog workers accused Mr. Watt of inappropriate behaviour in a BBC disclosure investigation. Lawyers for Mr. Watt said the allegations were false, and Ofcom rejected complaints that Brewdog and Mr. Watt were unfairly treated in the programme. In January, Brewdog also faced a backlash after revealing it would no longer hire staff on the real living wage, instead paying the lower legal minimum wage. And just a more recent report from The Times, how Brewdog's craft beer revolution went flat. And it just says here, credited with popularising American-style craft IPAs in the UK, Brewdog claimed to have grown from nothing into a business worth $1 billion. Now, after years of rapid growth, the company is fighting to just stand still. It's battling inflation, fallen consumer confidence, and a decline in boozing. Pre-tax losses at the brewer have spiraled in recent years, growing from £30.5 million in 2022 to £59 million in 2023. Brewdog's sales growth has slowed dramatically in recent years, with revenues rising by less than £3 million to £357 million in 2024. So I would say out of the three examples we're using of like toxic CEOs and founders ruining a company, I would say this isn't totally because of James Watt. I do think it plays a significant role that shouldn't be downplayed because of how much he's embracing like anti-wokeness, worshipping tech bros and AI. Everyone knows he's still involved with the company, right? And that's why it has a shit reputation. But also you have to think about like other beer companies and drinks companies. So, like I said, when someone says Brewdog, it's more likely than not to have a negative connotation. If you're about my age, you will know for some reason with loads of non-Irish people, Guinness has become really popular. Like, everyone drinks Guinness now for some reason. And when you say Guinness to someone, what do they think of? They don't think of the founder of Guinness, like, from 300 years ago. They don't think about who's the CEO or who runs Guinness. I don't know who that is. And when you think of Guinness, you probably just think of Ireland, going to Ireland, the Guinness factory in Ireland. I don't know. It seems to have like a positive reputation, despite the fact that I'm sure it's done loads of shit and has loads of terrible people working there, but you just don't have that association. So with Guinness continue to thrive recently, even in a pub market, which is just insane at the moment. Like, I don't drink and I haven't for many years, but I don't know how anyone affords to go out to the pub regularly. It's still happening, and Guinness seems to be doing well. But again, it doesn't have that toxic reputation of having some sort of conservative, like, really annoying personality attached to the beer, where if you buy that product, you're making that guy richer. So you can see why a lot of corporations and corporate brands don't try the strategy of tying everything to one guy, because if that one guy then goes divorced dad weird, then everyone is going to know about it and everyone's going to feel a certain way about it. And if they aren't from a very specific niche of like conservative tech bro divorced dad, or just like some sort of simp for entrepreneurs and neoliberalism, they're probably going to be put off at the very least. And like I said, most people do not want to think about politics, about any of that shit when they're consuming a drink. Even totally normal conservative people don't want to think about that. But when you're plastering some guy's face everywhere and it's all you can think about when you buy the drink, then you're going to have a problem with your sales. Now, here's an example of someone like Elon or this James Watt, but he basically ruined his whole product. So for those of you who don't play video games, there is a game series called Splitgate. Now, I played Splitgate 1 during COVID, I think, and it was just like a straight up Halo clone with the gimmick of having like the portals from the Portal series. So it's kind of like a nice idea. It was interesting to play. Like, the portal mechanic did make this game good. I did enjoy it. It was free to play. It was nothing special, and it was really, really derivative. It wasn't hiding its influences, but it also didn't feel like very new. Portal mechanic gave it a bit of something, but it was like straight up a Halo clone. One of the biggest like rip-offs I've ever seen of another game was Splitgate. So they said they were gonna pull their resources from the original and make Splitgate 2. But what happened next was the CEO and founder of the company basically completely destroyed the sequel. So this company who makes Splitgate, 1047 Games, one of the investors is Tom Proul. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Tom Proul X, because he's a tech bro. Is basically some like computer science guy who seems to be quite wealthy, invested in lots of companies, and his son is the guy who runs the company. So I wouldn't call him like a nepo inherently, but obviously has a lot of help in making this game. Now, what happened to this game is the guy, Ian Proul, he, on Summer Games Fest, went up on stage with a baseball bat. I'll probably play the clip. And he had a hat on saying, "Make FPS great again." This is like 2 months ago. So Donald Trump was president for a second time.
Hey guys, I'm Ian Proul, the co-founder of 1047 Games. When we started Splitgate in our dorm room, we just wanted to make a game we could play with our friends. And 20 million of you played with us. Now, with the help from our amazing community, we've built Splitgate 2. Why? Because I grew up playing Halo. And I'm tired of playing the same Call of Duty every year. And I wish we could have Titanfall 3. With Splitgate 2, we asked ourselves, how would we take portals to the next level? What if you could portal to entirely different worlds? So we combined the action, movement, and gunplay of arena shooters with the scale and intensity of something much bigger. Splitgate Battle Royale launches free right now, and it's fucking awesome.
So you can probably understand why lots of people were annoyed. The community kind of turned on him for multiple reasons. Because firstly, he talked about making FPS games great again, and there is a general sentiment that first-person shooters haven't been good since the glory days of, like, let's say 2007 to 2011. And I would certainly say that would be the case. Like, think of all the great games like I played growing up, like online especially. Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, Halo Reach, Call of Duty 4, 5. Modern Warfare 2. We had like Battlefield Bad Company 2, Bad Company 2 Vietnam, Battlefield 3. Like, this was the glory days of first-person shooters on Xbox Live. You couldn't beat it. Nothing has ever beaten it, in my opinion. And now we're in this landscape where like Call of Duty is just like a Fortnite clone and everything wants to be Fortnite. So there is like a market for like making an FPS game like we had back when we were teenagers. And it seems like Battlefield 6 is actually going to capitalize on the sentiment of we want games that kind of fit into that era. And I feel like it will do really well because people are clamoring for it. People were mad about the message because immediately they're like, oh, there's going to be like $80 skins and a battle royale. So people were already like, well, you're not making FPS games great again. But then, of course, you cannot ignore the political connotations of deciding to go on stage with essentially a spin-off of Donald Trump's MAGA hat and trying to make this point. And most people know game development circles lean left. Most people like hate Donald Trump. You would argue there's a general sentiment of anti-capitalism, even if it's not explicitly articulated, because there isn't really a world where people who make games love capitalism infringing on their art, especially in the games industry where it seems to not matter how much your game sells, you're still going to get laid off anyway, right? So he also said, to start with, after the backlash of like, why are you even doing this? He wasn't sorry. So he posted on the Splitgate Reddit, him and the hat again with a thumbs up, saying, I'm not here to apologise, but I'm here to clarify. This is not a political statement. It's quite literally what it says, so take it at face value. The state of multiplayer FPS games is tragically stale. We hope to fix that. Whether you want Arena, Battle Royale, or Map Creator, we plan to support all four experiences. Ian. And the community sentiment was basically, a lot of people didn't care so much about the hat, right? They were more like, we like this game and we want the product to grow so we can keep playing this game. It's an online shooter. And what you've done is essentially turn off anyone from giving this a chance because they've done the Elon thing. They've done the Brewdog thing. Now when anyone thinks of Splitgate, they're thinking, oh, the guy who runs the company and made Splitgate is some sort of conservative and is doing these trolling stunts in front of like loads of people at this games presentation. I'm not going to give that a chance, especially in like a very competitive market, which is free online shooters. I can play anything else. I don't know what the creator of Fortnite or the CEO of Epic says about X, Y, and Z. I don't know any of these things, but you're just priming people to not want to play your product. I'm not super sensitive to shit like that. I don't really give a shit he did this, but it's pretty clear anyone who thinks it's a good idea at the current climate is probably very sympathetic to conservative politics. So people aren't wrong for like reading that and then deciding, yeah, I do not want to give this product any attention or any money. So, of course, I'm sure a lot of people around him told him it was a stupid thing to do. And he posted 3 days after saying he wasn't sorry, that he actually is very sorry. And in the text he says, why didn't you apologise before? I should have. Like I said in the video, I do stand by my intent, but I understand now the negative impact this had. That's why I'm apologising. I understand it might come off as backpedaling, but better late than never.
Hey guys, it's Ian. You're probably tired of seeing my face by now, but I promise this message is going to be a little bit different than the previous ones. So I've got a lot of questions about what's up with the hat, why'd you wear it, what was the intent, and I want to start by explaining myself. It is really freaking hard as an independent studio to break through the noise. You go to these award shows. We saw it at TGA's. We had this great trailer, and there's 50 other great trailers, and didn't really have an impact. And so at our biggest stage, coming out of beta, we needed something to grab attention. And the honest truth is, we tried to think of something, and this is what we came up with. We did not intend for this to be taken in any political way whatsoever. And I'm not an idiot. Like, obviously I knew there would be some level of controversy, but we really saw this as a meme that was kind of stating our truth, which is we do want to improve this genre. We are disappointed with the state of the genre. And so we took it as a meme that we thought would not be nearly as received the way it was, negatively received as the way it was. And so I want to apologize. And genuinely, you can pretend, you don't have to believe me. But the truth is I am sorry. And the reason I'm sorry is because of what this has done to the community. The most important thing to me right now is I want to have an amazing community. Yeah, I mean, I wish things were different, and I appreciate all the feedback. That's all I got, guys.
If you read a lot of his statements around this, he's not actually really sorry for the connotation with like Donald Trump and MAGA and shit like that. It's more just that he got backlash. And even him saying like, this is what we could come out with to break through the noise, just this one stunt. I don't know who's around him. I've always said every company or any person generally, they need to hire a snarky leftist to tell them that these ideas are stupid. I mean, you don't have to be a snarky leftist to realize this is a bad idea. But I think about like all of these things sometimes when you see like maybe a YouTuber announce like paywalled content or like using AI or certain sponsorships and loads of companies doing weird shit. I'd be like, they need to hire like one very cynical leftist, like someone like me on the team, just to be like, that's going to go down really badly. Like, don't do that. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And I'm sure these people like hire like-minded individuals, especially at small studios, or maybe they're even scared of going against him because they could lose their job. That's what's actually happened to a lot of them because of this backlash. Because what happened a month after that is they announced they were unlaunching the game. And they were firing a bunch of people from the studio because this, among other things, had made the brand pretty toxic, that the numbers were down massively for Splitgate 2. So it essentially was failing, and they're feeling like they have to go back into the drawing board in some ways, and it's going back into beta. But now, I would say it's a pretty easy prediction to say Splitgate as a brand is never going to recover. And that's the thing with a lot of just consumer products in general. Splitgate had something when it launched. It was really popular because people wanted that Halo experience. Like, Halo was in a very bad state. I think Halo Infinite was still like a year and a half out. And they're like, why is Halo so bad? Like, we used to love playing this growing up. Oh, here is a game that is really close to Halo with a fun spin where there's these portal things and it's free to play. Go play it. Everyone enjoyed it, right? And it had a good reputation. It's something people played in the pandemic when these shooters were all popping off. And then what happens is you get another chance. Splitgate 2, there's a bit of hype around it. And you just created the reputation by what you've said and how inconsistent you've been as well. What he should have done is, in his apology, like really recognize why people might be mad about this. I think people would have preferred an apology where he says, you know, I knew people would take this politically. I'm just a bit of an idiot. I didn't really think people would take it as like some sort of one-on-one endorsement of conservative politics or Donald Trump's agenda. Like, we reject that. There's none of that because he probably is conservative and he doesn't want to alienate potential conservative players. So he tried to go anti-woke. He tried to fill the niche of, oh my God, all these people who played these shooters back in the day must be like conservatives and they'll like this. That's what he's thinking, really. Like, everyone who plays military shooters are conservatives, so they'll like this. But again, it plays into multiple things of a lot of normal people don't really consider themselves that political. They are without knowing it, but they don't really have any allegiance to political parties or political figures. And you're asking them to give your game a chance, and you're giving them the thing of, oh, now you have to think about Donald Trump. You have to think about Donald Trump, you have to think about MAGA, and you have to think about maybe giving one of them money. And again, you don't have to be some crazy leftist to not be okay with that. The same way that loads of people probably boycotting like Tesla in Europe, there's probably fairly conservative people doing that as well because of what Elon Musk was representing with his salute, the same way with his MAGA guy's hat. Better or worse, people don't want to think about their consumer choices. And if you're confronting them with like very, very conservative politics, you're going to taint the brand. And especially when you are the face of the company and you're using your position as the face of the company to do stupid stunts like that, it's like what Elon did at the inauguration as well. So that is why these individual figures can like make stuff distasteful. And going anti-woke personally, even if it's not the like whole company doing it, can just really destroy the reputation of a company. Now, we spoke about the genes, and I show you various examples of individuals, but here's one other company you might have seen recently. It's called Steak and Shake. That has gone like fully MAGA, like really explicitly MAGA, more like explicitly pro-RFK, in the hopes to revive their business. Now, I wouldn't say there are no place for conservative businesses that cater specifically to people who are politically conservative, and they're doing it far more than like Starbucks having a rainbow flag, for example. It's way more pivoting hard to a conservative market. I don't know if it's actually going to work. It doesn't work generally, I don't feel, but it's an example of a company deciding, like the Gene Company, we're going to go hard conservative, let's see how it goes. So Steak and Shake was struggling, and it turned to beef, tallow, and MAGA from the Washington Post. Steak and Shake was looking for a change. The Indianapolis-based fast food chain for burgers and milkshakes replaced its leadership after a bad 2024. Mid-January, announced that all of its restaurants would switch to cooking their French fries with beef tallow. Executives said the move would make for tastier fries, and it also aligned Steak and Shake with President Donald Trump's top health official, RFK Jr., who has made replacing seed oils a key plank of his plans to overhaul America's food industry. Conservatives hailed Steak and Shake's decision as a win for Trump's controversial cabinet pick. Steak and Shake's COO, Dan Edwards, said in February, "We RFK'd our fries." Now Steak and Shake's account posts images of Tesla-themed storefronts on Mars and slogans like "Make frying oil tallow again," printed on MAGA-esque red hats. The account reposted endorsements from people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Laura Loomer. A Florida Steak and Shake was the backdrop of a Fox News interview between RFK and Sean Hannity. Steak and Shake was founded in 1934 and suffered a rocky 2 decades. And in 2020, after another period of sustained losses, the restaurant simplified its menu and replaced servers with self-service kiosks. As of last year, the company had shed 200 locations from a peak of 626. Steak and Shake's pre-tax earnings barely topped $20 million last year, and 20% short of the company's goal, according to a quarterly report. Steak and Shake wrote in March that zealots can't stop us. Some suppliers have even tried to stop us from implementing beef tallow. Nothing will stop our crusade to lead in the Make America Healthy Again movement. This is like a burger chain that is talking about this. So this is like a rare example of a company going full MAGA in the hopes that it will boost its revenue. I don't see this working. The same way that going full MAGA have affected all the companies we spoke about in a bad way, because if you are tying your actual profits and your actual branding to politicians whose popularity like goes up and down, then it completely relies on those politicians staying popular, and they're just going to get more and more unpopular as what they've done in the first year actually starts hurting people. Like when there is some sort of like maybe even a pandemic, but some sort of disease outbreak, people are going to link it back to RFK. That's going to drastically affect you. When Donald Trump's policies really start hurting people, you're tying it so much to your company. And again, you might always have that loyal conservative fan base, but when there are so many different options for fast food, and even less political people will say, well, I know you're linked to Donald Trump. I know you're linked to RFK. I know your company completely supports them, so I'm not going to go there. And again, most fast food companies are probably like very, very unethical. But if you just say fast food companies' names to people, Burger King, McDonald's, Subway, I don't know about you, but I don't know about the explicit political affiliations of people who run like these fast food chains. I'm sure they are pro-Republican and pro-conservative, but it's not in their marketing. And even we're seeing with a lot of them, like ones that have, you know, chains in Israel or the occupied territories, you have that reputation with them. But this is something that's saying, no, we are MAGA, we are pro-Tesla, we are pro-Elon, we're pro-RFK, and hoping that's going to make a sustainable business. I just can't see it happening. Actually going full anti-woke drastically affects your sales way more than any sort of lip service to progressivism. And I just feel like as the world gets worse and worse, companies explicitly basically saying fuck you in terms of their explicit political alignment is not going to be a strategy these companies will employ for long. They're feeling emboldened right now, or trying to, I guess, feel which way the wind is blowing. Even like Tim Cook giving Trump this gift like he's a medieval king. That's not going to last forever. And especially when these people become more unpopular, these companies will feel more emboldened to not obey the government or cozy up with the government. I just feel like we live in a very specific moment where especially like Western corporations and specifically American ones feel like everyone is just some fanatical conservative right now, when I wouldn't say that's the case. So I don't see any long-term success with this type of strategy. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.